Hi, I'm Fatu,
And I'm Maz.
and this is
Dinner Party History.
It's
So,
it's different today because, as you can tell, we're on camera. We're on
party.
video.
Yes, we are.
I love being here. We are at the Spotify studios today, recording our newest episode. What's going on, girl?
Well, today we're talking about circuses, and I feel like this week has been a bit of a circus for both of
It's
us.
been whoa.
It's been a whirlwind.
It's been in the worst way possible.
Because what you're going to learn about today is that a lot of circuses have like highs and lows, right? There's fires, there's flexibility, there's lies, there's
Fraud.
acrobat. Yeah. And that's been our, I'd say that sums up our week.
So, besides the fraud,
Besides, well, for me, there's always fraud.
she's a lawyer, guys. Remember, she's not committing the
So
fraud.
there's always
She's
alleged fraud.
right. Okay, no fraud on my end.
Right.
Thank goodness. So, I feel like you're going to ask me, but we have to ask each other. Like the Spider-Man pointing at me, have you ever been to a circus?
I never went to a circus growing up. However, I went to the Cirque du Soleil show not
I
too
was
long
just about
ago
to say, you went to
for
Cirque
the
du Soleil?
first time ever, and I was always dreaming of going to the Cirque du Soleil. I thought that I wanted to be one of those flexible women on the tightrope.
You wanted to walk the tightrope?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I liked about the Cirque du Soleil was that there were no elephants or animals involved.
I love that.
There was like a man dressed up as a dog. And then what amazed me is there's children there, but it is so overtly sexual. Like
Cirque du Soleil is sexual?
the positions that people put themselves in, and they're so skin tight.
Skin tight clothes are doing the splits in the air and
Yeah,
shit.
and when they do like weird things where it's like people's heads will be shoved in each other's crotches and they're like doing lifts. It's amazing work. Olympic
right.
level work in my opinion.
Okay.
And they'll have seductive music in the background. And so I'm dying to go to Vegas.
Listen, I've never had the desire to go. Which one did you go to?
I can't remember what it was called, but it wasn't like a Michael Jackson one.
You know, I don't know if I would like that. I don't know if that'd be amazing or weird.
I think if we have good preparatory behavior and then
You
we
got to
go
be 2 drinks in to go to Cirque du
and then we
Soleil.
go to the show, I think we'd have a great time.
Okay.
So I'm adding that to our Vegas list when we go.
Okay. I'll keep it on my chest. I'll think about that. But no, I've never been to a circus too. The closest thing is a fair. And it's like,
The fair is so
I
great.
feel like all circuses have fairs, but not all fairs are circuses.
I can't break it because one has rides and the other doesn't.
No, because I feel like the difference between a circus and a fair is that like a circus has like the animals, like the shows, the oddities. Like, is there a fucking bearded lady at the Puyallup Fair?
I think I have actually seen fake bearded ladies. Because they'll have like the Madame Zeroni folks as well.
Right.
That's kind of
Oh my, which reminds me,
line
that
with
my
it.
favorite book from a series of unfortunate events is The Carnivorous Carnival. When they go to the carnival,
right.
and there's a fake the lady.
Yes. It's been a minute. I haven't read the books in a long time.
So when I think of circus, I think of Ringling Brothers, I think of Barnum and Bailey, and I think of Britney and Spears.
All eyes on me. I'm the center of the scene. I'm not good with lyrics. All
There's
eyes on
only
me. I'm the
two
center of the
types
ring, just
people
like
in
us.
the world.
The ones that entertain and the ones that observe.
Well,
But,
baby,
yeah.
I'm a put on
Uh-huh.
a show kind of girl.
Don't like the back seat.
Gotta be first. I'm like the ringleader.
I call the shots.
I call the shots.
Okay, they didn't come here to hear us
Okay,
sing.
but yeah,
That's
it's
probably
all
gonna get
eyes on
clipped.
me in the center of the ring, just like a circus. When
And I also
cracked
think
that
of
whip-
Adriana Lima in the Victoria's Secret fashion show.
That was so hot. That was hot. That was hot.
Yeah,
And I don't know why I think of Gwen Stefani and Holla Back Girl, but that was a marching band. That wasn't circus.
right.
But
And now
anyhow-
we've got the chimpanzee show.
Oh my
That-
God.
that
So we're going to
borders on
talk
it as
about
well.
animal cruelty in this. And I don't know about y'all, but I watched the show Chimp Crazy on HBO. She refused to watch.
I watched it with her, but it's
But you
so
weren't
disturbing.
you weren't invested as I was.
Because you started off by giving me the wrong intel, first of all. You don't convince somebody to watch a show by saying, yeah, I was like half awake, the show was on, and then all of a sudden she's talking about the monkey jerking off. Why would I want to watch that?
I mean, that's the part I woke up on.
And I don't want to
If you-
see that.
You guys have to watch Chimp Crazy. It's on HBO Max. It's created by the same people who created Tiger King. And somehow I think this is even more of a hot mess than Tiger King. But no matter what, I feel bad for the animals involved in every aspect.
So now that we've given a shit show of an intro,
Right. That was a lot.
Tell me, when did circuses really start? Because I had no background in this at all. It's nothing you learn in school.
Right.
And I just saw that it had roots with the Catholic Church because the Catholic Church used to have jugglers
You
and
always
shit
find some
like
way to
that.
bring the
Yes, I
Catholic
will.
Church. You
And I'm
always
not
find a
Catholic,
way.
to be clear. I'm not
Woo.
trying to push it. I'm
You
not
can take
pushing
the girl
P.
out of Catholic school.
But I'm just saying, I didn't know that. I thought that was interesting that there would be Catholic festivals, and that's where the circuses come from. You'd have all this entertainment, and they'd even have some acrobats.
Wasn't in my notes. I was going to start off with the Roman Empire, your favorite thing.
Oh, well, again, Roman Catholicism.
Okay, so
Take it away, Joe.
With it starts like every fun thing in the world with the Roman Empire. So the origins of the circus come from the Roman phrase Circus Maximus, and Circus Maximus means largest circus. And the Circus Maximus, which still exists in Rome, is the oldest and largest public space in Rome. And at Circus Maximus, it was known for chariot horse racing, wild animal hunts, public executions, and animal fights.
So the public executions were entertainment.
Yeah.
Damn. Mm-hmm. That's what idle hands are, the devil's playground. That's why the saying is what it is.
That's why I'm glad, we have iPads and Twitter and stuff now, because we don't need that.
Fair.
Yeah, and so we have all that in the Roman Empire and shit. But the founder of the modern circus is a British man named Philip Astley. He founded the Astley's Riding School in London with his wife Patty. And early on, circuses were mostly focused on not animals, specifically horses doing tricks and stuff. Like, that weird dressage
like
shit.
Dressage.
I hate that shit. It's so weird. I don't want to see your fucking horse dancing. Like, in the Olympics, I'm like, you do not deserve a medal. The horse deserves a medal. He's dancing. She's dancing.
There could be a lot of horse girls on this pod. And to that, we're not educated in this realm. We didn't grow up with enough money to ever ride horses.
It feels wrong.
So, yeah. Is there cruelty involved with the dressage?
I'm just like, either way, you're putting the horse to work and giving it a job. Anyhow, girl. So the stuff was mostly focused around like the horse show performances and teaching students, and also during these shows, which brings in the entertainment aspect of it, where that musicians would perform live music during the shows, and the shows would also travel from city to city. They would travel to Paris, where the Astleys included other acts such as acrobats, clowns, and a band. But the horse shows were really like the most specific part of the shows. But the person who really coined the term circus in this modern usage is a man named Charles Dibdin. He coined the term circus, and
didn't he used to work for the first guy?
I mean, yeah.
I heard I think there was something that I watched or listened to. It was
right down the street. They were pretty close.
And he used to be a horse trainer for the first guy that you just mentioned. And then he built a circus right next door as competition. And then he had a better circus. And then all of a sudden, conveniently, his old friend's circus kept burning down.
The game is the game.
Do you think it was an accident?
I don't think it was an accident.
If my shit burns down twice in a row and you built your shit next to mine.
One time, accident. 2 times, arson.
You're fucking with me.
1,000%.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's going to be a lot of overlap and cannibalization of different circuses in this story. Circus people are messy as fuck. So he creates the Royal Circus, and again, not too far from the Astley Circus, and he modeled it after them, but he really upgraded the shit. He made it different. And so what we think of a modern circus with like the animals, the acrobats, all that stuff, that existed before what they call the menageries, like traveling menageries.
I didn't understand what that meant, menagerie.
A menagerie is like...
It's French.
A menagerie, it's like a
multiple.
A show, like, let me look at the definition.
Menage a trois is what I'm thinking.
Menagerie. Let's look up the definition. Menagerie. Okay, a collection of wild animals kept in captivity for exhibition. So Joe Exotic had a menagerie, the chimp lady had a menagerie, and so did all these circus people. They had their own menageries. That's what they were before the circuses. But then, when Charles came in, it's like, okay, these things are called circuses now. And apparently what really made circuses pop off was the Industrial Revolution. Did you read that?
No, I didn't.
It's because before that, we didn't have the fucking steam engines on the train. And it's like with the industrialization of the train system, it's like they made it easier.
You can take all of these animals in bulk.
Pack it up, pack the animals, pack the tents, pack the people. It made it easier to transport. So thank you, Industrial Revolution.
Or
we had
not,
circuses.
because we didn't really want circuses, as we'll soon find out.
Fair. So again, like we talked about, when we think of circuses, we think of 2 B's, Barnum and Bailey. What do you know about P.T. Barnum? What does the P.T. stand for? Physical
PT
therapy?
Phineas.
Oh.
So Phineas was his name. I don't remember his last name, but I know
Verb.
that I know that P.T. Barnum, he grew up a hustler. His dad was a hustler, his grandpa was a hustler, but because his dad was always out in the streets trying to make a buck, he mostly spent his time with his grandfather, and his grandfather had this knack for pulling pranks on people. That was like the type where you're pantsing people on the street.
Hijinks.
Just being a fucking annoying nuisance.
I love the word hijinks.
And because of that, it kind of had an impact on PT because he's like, yeah, you know what? America loves a spectacle. You pull somebody's pants down, they laugh. You poison somebody, they laugh. And it kind of remains with him. And so when he opens up a general store one day, I think he's like 25 or something. I love the idea of a general store, by the way.
You seem like you'd have one.
I would. Back in the day.
If we were in the Oregon Trail, you would be the general store owner.
100%. And you'd be doing my books.
I'd be getting jerky from you.
But he owns this general store. And then eventually this one woman comes into his store and she tells him, hey, I'm selling something. And she says, it's a spectacle. He's curious. He looks at the paper. What's for sale is a woman. And of course, in line with American history at the time, a black woman is for sale.
No, is this where I think it's going to go?
Yes, this is exactly where it's going to go. And her name is Joyce Heath. Okay? And Joyce Heath she was born in slavery. She was PT's able to purchase her. At the time, she was sold at the auction, and she wasn't being sold as George Washington's nurse at the time, so bear with me. It was being marketed as, oh, she's this blind old black woman, and she's like the oldest black woman ever to exist. He buys her and starts adding on to this story and says that she's 161 years old. She is George Washington's nurse. And he puts her because eventually he puts out newspapers all over, and he's putting ads in the newspapers is what I'm saying. And he kind of builds the circus around Joyce, and people come in by the boatload to see Joyce because they do believe that this is George Washington's nurse.
There was no Snopes
and they do believe she's
then.
161 years old. But then when it starts dying down, he escalates the story. So then he says,
what does a 161-year-old look like? Does she look like fucking Grandmother Willow?
I don't want to disrespect Joyce.
But
I am going to say Joyce looked rather old.
Okay,
but again, she lived a life of fucking misery.
Right, that ages you.
Right. So once ticket sales start to go down, he starts sending in new secret letters into the news agencies where he's saying she's actually not even a human being. She's a robot. She's made of like whale skin. And then that generates some buzz. When that dies down, he does the worst thing, in my opinion, which is he says she really wants to be able to make enough money so she can free her grandchildren from slavery. She wants to make sure her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren don't have to live enslaved. And a bunch of people fucking come. Obviously, he's not giving her any of the money. And eventually she ends up dying. And when she dies, he has a public autopsy performed of her.
Oh my God.
And I think they say 1,500 people bought tickets to watch this autopsy. And the doctor that's performing it ends up saying, oh, she's actually no more than 80 years old. And he just he starts screaming over the man who's giving the autopsy and says, no, she's a liar. What's the truth is that Joyce still lives. She's just performing at a different circus show. And it kind of becomes, his whole thing is he's like Trump. And I know I've compared a lot of people to Trump, but he really is, because his whole focus is on spectacle, just like Nero, if I'm going to be honest.
Everything comes back to Nero, huh?
He believed that American people want to be humbugged. That's like an actual
Define
quote.
Humbug.
Deceit.
Okay.
You want to be deceived. You want to be lied to. And you could say that when you're really poor and you don't have much to look forward to and you feel like you've been downtrodden, you will be quicker to accept a lie. And that's who he preyed on, just like some people that are running for office now. So that's my P.T. Barnum knowledge.
Okay, so P.T. Barnum, I knew it was going to be bad, but I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. So Barnum is the evil one. Bailey is far nicer in this story. Bailey actually had a pretty bad childhood. His parents died when he was pretty young early on. And he wasn't born, his name is actually James A. McGinnis. He was born James A. McGinnis, and he was considered the heart of the circus. It's like, yeah, Barnum is the face. He's the one doing all the shit. He loves the attention, but Bailey is the heart. He's like doing all the background scenes. He loved to be
And
in
they
the back.
started off as competitors, right?
Right.
Okay.
So when he was 13, 2 months after the Civil War began, he left home, he left school, and he went to join a traveling circus. And again, he had a bad family life. His parents died when he was young early on, and it's like, okay, what else do I got left?
Right.
Let me just join the fucking circus. So he's doing the traveling circuses, and he's discovered by this man named Colonel Frederick Harris Bailey, who was like an advance man for circuses, like deal the tickets and stuff. And he was really close with this colonel, and the colonel loved him and really took good care of him and showed him the ropes of the circus. And he admired him so much that he took on his last name. So he became
Oh, wow.
James A. Bailey, and he used that name for the rest of his life, which is so sweet to me because I'm like, he really went through so much shit and he really had some allies, some mentors.
Is he a good guy? Is that
Yeah,
what you're telling
there's
me?
not going to be an aha moment. He's not fucking Barnum's evil ass.
Well, I'm just
Evil
like, I'm not
Chris.
sure, like, what side was he on in the Civil War? These
Well,
are the
we
questions
don't know
I have
all
to
of that.
ask
I don't. I haven't the
before
details.
I start awing over this man.
So, in his early 20s, he also starts working with this guy named James E. Cooper, who was also in the circus business, and he made the Cooper and Bailey Circus with James A. Bailey. And then soon after that, he ends up meeting Phineas Barnum.
Okay.
He meets P.T. Barnum, and they create, of course, their iconic Barnum and Bailey Circus. And we're going to get to this soon, but I have to mention it now. So Bailey was instrumental in bringing the elephants to the circus.
Right, because he would smuggle them from Sri Lanka.
He would smuggle them from Sri
Insane
Lanka.
behavior. We lived in a different time.
So it's like, okay, yeah, maybe he wasn't the best, but I'm just like, compared to P.T. Barnum, he was pretty bad. And fun fact, people don't know, but the famous elephant from the circus was called Jumbo. And people think the word jumbo just means large, but the word jumbo means large because they originally called the elephant Jumbo, and that came before the actual word jumbo because they got the word jumbo because jumbo in
Oh.
Swahili means hello.
Wow, that's news you can use.
That's new, right? So that's why we say jumbo is big because, yeah, elephants are fucking jumbo. They're big.
And
like,
here I
okay,
was just thinking Dumbo.
and it's like, what came first, the orange color or the fruit? We don't know.
I've never even
That's
bothered with that
that's out of the
question.
realm of possibility at the moment. So, and again, Bailey really liked working behind the scenes. He loved the operations. He loved the logistics. He loved transportation. That was his shit. He was known to be super organized and was really arranged at like, or not arranged. He was really skilled at arranging the transport of people, animals, and equipment. And he was so good at it that multiple militaries from different countries followed what he did because they're like, okay, this guy's fucking
If
efficient.
you can move animals around like
Right?
this, you must have
Animals
something.
and freaks. What can he do? He's getting shit done. And so he was super protective of the circus and he wanted it to be well. And again, P.T. Barnum seemed like he did not want that. He would hire detectives to protect circus goers from scammers and thieves. Because there's always like those freaking people wandering around the circus like, oh, want to play a game?
Okay.
Shit like that. And he also would love bringing orphans to the circus to give them a free experience and enjoy all the shows.
No,
and
he
the
wanted to get
rides.
them hooked. So that you get the first drug free, and the next thing you know, you're begging your parents
He was
to
on a
take you back.
pusher.
I don't care. I'm not a fan of him. You're trying to be his agent, and I'm just not
I'm
picking
just
up
like,
what you're
I'm not
putting
saying
down.
he's perfect, but compared to the man who was kidnapping enslaved women,
Sure, he's not
cutting them
Lucifer,
up.
but he's a devil.
don't compare him to my guy.
Okay, whatever.
Watch it.
fine.
So, and he would love to bring the orphans to the circuses and let them enjoy the shows and have fun because, yeah, he was an orphan. He had a hard fucking life. So it's like, yeah, let me bring some joy to the kids, unlike P.T. Barnum's ass. And he was very, very involved until the very end. And he died, unfortunately, of like this bacterial infection in his nose. They say it's from plucking his nose hairs. Yeah. And unfortunately, he died of that bacterial infection. And he died in 1891. And when he died, and before he died, when Barnum died, he took over the circus. And he was, okay, doing all the work as he always did. And he also was managing Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. And I'm like, Buffalo Bill.
Is that like Annie, Get Your Gun?
I have no idea. When I think Buffalo Bill, I think Clarice. I think Silence of the Lambs.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, then eventually he dies of the bacterial infection, and his wife sells the circus to the Ringling Brothers, who they kind of had beef with. They were very rivals. Again, there's a lot of rivals in the circus industry. And then eventually in 1917, Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey merged to the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus.
At least they kept their names in.
Right. The
It
names
counts
live
for
on.
something. So I don't know anything about the Ringling Brothers. All I know is that the last Ringling Brothers Circus was what, 2017? Who
2017,
the fuck
yeah.
was going to that? Because at least when it comes to back in the day, I can understand why people were so crazed for the circus.
They did not have shit else to
You
do.
were twiddling your thumbs. It was an agrarian society. All you knew was the lay of the land.
Right. So it's like, okay, let's just drive on out.
Yeah, and no zoos. The fact that these circuses came before zoos.
Right. So it's like, okay, what the fuck is an elephant? I know horses, I know bears, I know dogs, cats, elephant. What's this thing? So the Ringling Brothers, they had their circus, and they were huge rivals with Barnum and Bailey in the 1890s. And eventually they had to come to some kind of agreement like, okay, we can't just keep doing this back and forth. They decided to divide the United States geographically to avoid competition and doing all that back and forth shit. And the Ringling Brothers established their headquarters in Chicago, nearing west, and Barnum and Bailey stayed in New York, staying on the northeast. But they're always going back and forth with each other, stealing acts, stealing animals, all kinds of shit.
I can't wait because I have a little piece of news that I'm going to drop on you.
Drop the bomb.
It's about your man. It's about
It's about James A. Bailey.
Remember how you said he was such a good guy?
No. If it's what I think it is, I'm gonna be so mad. I'll walk out.
It's not about the Civil War, but I'm sure I could find some shit out there. What I had been storing in my pocketbook is that one of the practices that used to go on in the circuses is just like how you said the train was so popular, right?
Yeah.
But obviously you had to pay your troops, right? You had to pay the performers. But Bailey had this ingenious idea and he actually has been quoted to say it's easier to just kill them off than to have to pay them. So there was this practice called red lighting, and in like the middle of the night when everybody's asleep, they would just throw the performers or the trainers off of the train so that they wouldn't have to pay them, and then at the next stop get new people.
James.
So that's
No.
your man.
You know I have the dyslexia. Maybe when I was reading the biography, I missed that section.
Your man
Okay,
was
James.
killing people by the truckload to save a buck.
And it's crazy because when you read all the biographies, they make it seem like Barnum was the evil one. I fell for it.
They're both killing people. Actually, I don't know. I think they were all in on it, but it seemed like Bailey was the one. He's the mastermind. He's like the
So P.T. Barnum is George Bush, and he's
That's
Dick
exactly
Cheney?
what I was gonna say. Is he's Cheney?
Okay, well that makes him even more evil. Oh my God. Okay, well that fucked up my vibe.
I had to do it, babe. I'm sorry.
Well, we're here to provide information, and you promote it.
I do what I can.
Okay, so we got the Ringling Brothers, we got Barnum and Bailey.
I think we need to talk about some of the performers.
Let's talk about it.
Because, and this is where it's a hard subject to discuss without it coming off like trauma porn, and you don't want to make it a joke because the stories are really traumatic. And then I looked at some of, because obviously like Fatou has mentioned for the 5th time today, bearded lady, right? You had people who had these differences, I guess. How do I even call it?
There's just physical differences, disabilities, looks. I don't want to use the word deformities, but
right, you don't.
I would say physical differences, physical disabilities.
Yes, and P.T. Barnum and Bailey both, they would hire these people that they called freak hunters. God, it's like using the word freak. Point being, he had these freak hunters, and they would go to different, honestly, plantations. I'm not even going to front, and different small neighborhoods. And obviously, people are sharing word of mouth that, oh yeah, there's one kid that grows hair off of his like eyeballs. Another kid is albino. And they would do shit like that. And the conjoined twins.
Chang and Aang.
Yes. And
Was that even their real names? Or were they trying to be racist?
I think they were trying to be racist. And then even like they would put bodies on spectacles as well.
Are we going to talk about it?
I don't want to go straight into Sarah Bart.
And because I'm like, both stories are, because the Elephant Man, Joseph Merrick, his story is also very fucking heartbreaking and depressing.
I guess I can just snip some of these parts then. I guess the one story that pisses me off the most is Sarah Bartman's story, which a lot of you have probably already heard of. But Sarah Bartman was a South African woman. She was smuggled from South Africa and taken to England and then later on to Paris. They say that she signed a contract where she agreed to be put on display and wear revealing clothes so that people could look at her body, because what made her a quote unquote freak was because she had a very large backside compared to the European women of the time. And I don't know.
No ass.
And it's honestly so disgusting because the way that they sexualized her to the point where literally people would poke like sticks at her genitals to make sure that it was real and there was no padding. And if you look over time, you can see how with her ads to come see her show, the drawings get more and more extreme over time.
Of course.
Like initially it just looked like a BBL. I'm not going to lie. Like the first drawings, it's just giving like, okay, she's got a nice ass. Mm-hmm. And then it starts getting really extreme where it looks like she's got like a whole, like almost like a mass tumor on her ass. And then they start making it so she starts carrying like a pipe in her mouth. Crazy shit. But she is this sensation, and they called her the Hottentot Venus because it was almost supposed to be, this is the antithesis of what Venus would be. And there's so much, it's like these men would just have like a desire to hate fuck her, if I'm going to be completely frank with you.
That's what a lot of freaking racist white people, slave owners did back then.
But it was a sensation, and there were a bunch of abolitionists at the time because, especially in Europe, they were already starting to put slavery to the wayside before America was. And I think Sarah Bartman was mostly UK and Paris. But the abolitionists end up bringing a claim on her behalf, saying that no, she didn't consent to this. And I think when I was reading some of the court documents, what's so disappointing is even the abolitionists speak about her as if she's not a person. Because
be nice to the thing.
Exactly. It's all about she can't consent. Saying that somebody can't consent is so fucked up. But they're like the ones on the right side of history in this situation.
Like, the moral line is...
And Sarah could barely... She didn't speak English. She only spoke Dutch because that was her master's language. And they kept swearing up and down that she had a contract.
Enslaver.
Nobody could find the agreement anywhere. She never actually gets to take the stand. She just has people that are interviewing her while her master is there. And they end up saying that she did consent to the agreement. She gets baptized immediately after, which is kind of odd. I'm not sure what the tie is, but all of a sudden she becomes very religious, apparently. I think that's all just a scheme by her enslaver. And they try to market it differently where it becomes not about, oh, look at this sensation because she's a freak. It's, we have to look at this because it's science. Mm-hmm. They start making it like it's a medical curiosity. And that's where George Cuvier comes into play. And if I could put any man in like a painful torture device, it would be him. If I'm going to be completely frank, I think he is so disgusting and despicable. And he had been obsessed with her for so long. And he's a French zoologist. And if you go to the Museum de l'Homme in Paris, you'll see he still has his office there. Which you would think they would burn it down, but whatever.
Right, I'm just like, nobody's...
Point being, he had been trying to see her genitals for the longest time, and she had kept refusing. And when the time comes and she ends up passing away, and again, I think she died at an early age. I think they say she died at like 26, 28. She had a drinking problem at that time. A lot of people...
I would be glued to the bottle.
Shocker.
Glued.
And some people say she died of smallpox or she had breast cancer. But she had her body had gone through a lot of trauma, as you can imagine, because she's being
1,000%.
caged and she's being poked and prodded all day
I'm
long.
sure they're certainly not taking care of her health.
But George takes this as his big moment where he can finally get his hands on her, and he performs an autopsy, if you will, but he actually never comes out with... It's honestly, he just dissected her body.
Disgusting.
And he pickled her brain.
What?
He pickled her brain. He ended up taking her genitals and he put them on display. And so when I tell you it wasn't until the 1970s that her body was taken off of display
Until
in Paris.
The 70s?
In the Natural History Museum in Paris. Until the 70s. And do you want to know why they ended up taking it down? It's because there was this one man who ended up attacking a lecturer during one of their readings, and he said that the reason why he attacked the lecturer is because he was so overcome with sexual feelings because Sarah Bartman's body was on display.
He attacked the lecturer because he was hot and bothered?
That's what he said. And so that's what caused them to end up putting it in a private area. It's so angering, is it not? Because I'm it's the fucking 70s, you guys.
Paris.
Jesus Christ.
And that is when people dick ride Paris, talking about, oh, they love black people. They love Josephine Baker. They just love black people so much. I'm just they did not give this woman some dignity. Her corpse, her body, dignity until the 70s because a man was bricked up at seeing her fucking corpse.
Right. And it's not even her corpse. I think that's what needs to be emphasized. It's literally her genitalia cut and put on display. How dehumanizing. And it's not until 2001 when they actually return her remains to South Africa. Because there was no doubt about it. She always wanted to go back home.
Yeah.
Obviously. But Nelson Mandela was really the champion of getting her back. He had been trying it for decades before 2001, but at the time Paris said we just couldn't find all of her remains. So it took a bunch of time for them to put her skeleton, the brain, and obviously her other parts together, send her back. But in that interim, just to go back to George Cuvier, the devil, you can read his writings about when he's performing the autopsy on her, and it's so unnerving because he'll talk 1 second about how she's got this beastly face like an orangutan, and then literally the next line will be about, but her neck was so beautiful and delicate. There's this constant push and pull. He's just this pervert that's been trying to prey on her from the very beginning. And he acted like he was trying to prove that by dissecting her, that black women, particularly Sarah Bartman, was more sexual because he said she had the largest labia. Her labia was larger than any of the European women. And this ends up ricocheting into an additional effort that he was taking on, where he was trying to perform studies on sex workers in Europe, black or white, it didn't matter, and prove that they had higher sexual desires, their libidos were bigger, and if you had a lot of sex, your labia would get bigger, causing your libido to increase. Basically, every black woman's a whore. You're predetermined to be a slut, and that's what we can thank him for. Isn't that amazing? And I think if you still go to Paris, because he also did a body cast of Sarah, when she's dead, you can still see the body cast. So that's what I've got for you. You see the rage, though.
Are these cameras on me?
It's the most angering story.
What camera am I looking into? This camera, this camera, this camera, all of them. If you are a descendant of George Cuvier, listen to this podcast. Unfortunately, because of your lineage, in 3 days you will begin to cough.
Yeah. It's rough, but it is what it is.
I don't even know what camera I'm looking into. I just want to let the camera know I am disgusted. I'm looking into I'm sickened.
Yeah.
And you know what's so crazy? Have you heard the drama going on with that British podcast? Those two guys, James and Fuad?
No, what's going on
They
with them?
have this podcast.
I love their pod.
Girl.
Oh, no.
Yeah, well, they let this guest, I have no idea who the guest was, come on the show. And he was talking about how he didn't like black women, how black women are so aggressive, black women are so that. And he's basically talking about black women like they're dogs. And they're just like on the show laughing, haha. And then if that's not enough,
I'm so disappointed in them.
people
That
pull up
breaks my
old
heart.
clips of old episodes and see all the other things they were talking about black women, all the horrible stereotypes. Black women are aggressive. Black women do this. Black women like all these horrible things. I don't even need to mention because you just mentioned them a couple minutes ago yourself. But yeah. And it's so bad that they even got rid of the old episodes. They took them down because people were pulling up the old receipts. Shits and gigs. Again, James and Fuad, in 3 days you will begin to cough.
I
Your
thought we
shit's
were the
over.
female James and Fuad. Clearly not.
Don't even, yeah, no.
It's so, but it's disturbing because you can really trace it all back to Kufi. This whole line of thinking, because still there's this whole idea about black women being
Oh,
so
of course,
aggressive.
the person who did it was fucking Andrew Schultz. Andrew Schultz, that horrible comedian. Comedian is a loose term. I'm just like, anybody's a fucking comedian. Diabolically unfunny Andrew Schultz you let a white man talk down about black women on your podcast.
We have so far to come.
Black women, dark-skinned black women, we go through so much. It's always some shit. I'm
like,
not
I
going
know,
to
where
turn
do
this
we
into
go
what I
from
want to turn it
there?
into, but we need a break. Before we take a break, please make sure you rate our podcast 5 stars, and please do leave a review if you can. We appreciate them so much, and it really does help the pod. And now we're back after these messages. We just heard a very harrowing tale of a woman named Sarah Bartman who went through unspeakable trauma at the hands of white people.
And now you're going to tell me a story about a white man that suffered also at the hands of
White people. What's the theme here? Okay, so I'm going to talk about a man named Joseph Merrick, who was known throughout his life and after his life as the Elephant Man. So, Joseph Merrick, he lived a rough life.
I know nothing about him other than Bradley Cooper played him on Broadway. That's it.
Okay, so he was born in England in 1862, and when he was born, he was healthy at birth. Like, there was no issues, nothing wrong, like, everything was just going fine. And so, but as he's getting older, they notice, like, some changes with his skin, like, lumps and bumps and, like, kind of, like, growth on his skin, but they're just like, okay, what's going on? But once he was 5 years old, they said, and quote, his skin was thick and lumpy and like that of an elephant and the same color. And back then, of course, they had no idea what it was. This is the 1800s, mind you. And now they say they believe he had this condition called Proteus. What is it called? It's called, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's called Proteus syndrome. Basically like an overgrowth of like skin tissue that they're like not tumors, but just like, again, benign tissue growing all over your body. And it started off, just kind of like on parts of his body. Then it was like kind of growing more and more and more to the point where it's like inhibiting his ability to like walk and talk. And after he got an injury on his side, it made it even harder for him to like kind of move around. And his family theorized that his condition came from his mom getting knocked down and frightened by an elephant at the fair.
And that's why they call him the Elephant Man?
Yeah, because this all happened because of an elephant allegedly, and also they say his skin looked and felt like what an elephant's skin.
I have no data here, so I can't fucking look.
Right, and like back then that was like a thing that people thought if a mother experienced some kind of emotional distress during her pregnancy or saw something scary, it would affect the baby.
Okay.
It's like if you get, I don't know, bit by a cat, the baby's gonna turn into a fucking cat.
So his skin is gray, is what you're telling me.
It is a grayish hue. It's hard to tell because all the photos are black and white, but his skin is like obviously discolored.
Okay.
Compared to like what
and rubber-like.
Not rubber, but I guess like cause
scaly.
No, because elephants, I never touched an elephant, but like, it's so funny. This is not funny, but I only have an idea of what an elephant feels like because there's an episode of My Super Sweet 16 where there's these two really cool Indian girls and they had elephants at their Sweet 16 and she's like, oh, it feels just like my Louis Vuitton bag. So his skin felt like a Louis Vuitton bag. I have it over there if you'd like to touch.
I have my own, but thank you.
Okay. But either way, again, so he's got this skin condition. And when he is 11 years old, unfortunately, his mom dies and his dad ends up remarrying. And his stepmom was horrible to him. His stepmom would abuse him, make fun of him, call him horrible names, deprive him from eating food, and would literally treat him like an animal, worse than an animal. And it was horrible. And when he was younger, he also fell and damaged his hip, which also, again, affected his ability to walk. And the injury site became infected.
He
And
can't catch a fucking break.
right, and it left him permanently disabled. So he always had issues walking because of that. And also, again, the growths on his skin. And so he stopped going to school at 13 for obvious reasons, as you can tell. And again, this is like the 1800s in the UK. This is like around the Industrial Revolution. So kids weren't going to school that long much anyway. And so it's like, okay, after you leave school, you got to start working. And so he tries to work, like working in factories, like a cigar factory. And again, because of his physical limitations, he wasn't able to work in the factories anymore. And so then his dad got him a hawking license, basically just like sell things on the street, like, oh, like soaps and food, like, oh, not soaps, they fucking stunk back then. They're selling all kinds of stuff on the street.
Okay.
But again, because of how he looked, people would not buy things from them, and he tried to give him a job, like selling things door to door. People refused to open the door. They wouldn't even want to look at him. They're just like, absolutely not. So again,
I'm like, is this even a good job for him? I feel like his
I'm
dad's
like, why would you
setting him up
fucking
for
give him the door to door
failure.
job? It was bad. And this is what he had to say about his life with his stepmom. He said, I was taunted and sneered at so that I would not go home to my meals and used to stay in the streets with a hungry belly rather than return for anything to eat. What few half meals I did have, I was taunted with the remark that that's more than what you've earned. That's what his stepmom would say to him.
I feel awful.
So it was pretty fucking bad for him. And again, he's just trying to make money to survive because he's not living at home anymore and he has no other means. So he's just like, what am I going to do? So he decides, okay, the only way I can continue to make any money to survive is to be a human curiosity, an oddity, because at the time that was a thing. So he sends a letter to this comedian named Sam Tor, who had experience doing that and working with different people. And so Sam Tor meets him and takes him on and decides to make him a part of a traveling exhibit. Because first he's just doing shows around the UK, around London. And then they're like, okay, if we want to make money, there's only so many people who are going to come to this in the UK. It's not that big of a country, so we have to leave and go around Europe. So he toured around Europe. People would look at him, obviously gawk and stare. He became a sideshow attraction, and they called him the Elephant Man.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's just so bad. I just want to call him Joseph, not the Elephant Man. They called him the Elephant Man, and of course, when he was in the circus people were fucking terrible. They mistreated him. Again, the taunting, the sneering, people throwing things at him, people were spitting on him. Like, people treated this man horribly. Like, I hate to compare anything to what Sarah Barber went through, but they were nearly neck and neck. I mean, obviously Sarah's was like different. It was sexual.
Listen,
but,
we don't need to have
we're not going to go trauma for trauma, but it was pretty bad at both. And things were pretty bad for him. And it came to the point where, again, he's traveling all around Europe and he's like kind of making decent money. And then when he gets to Brussels in Belgium, his manager at the time robs him. He steals his money. At the time, he had around...
He pulls a Diddy. Oh, my God.
Yeah, he had around 50 euros, which at the time, in these dollars, is almost $7,000, like $6,500. He takes all of his money and leaves him destitute in Brussels. No money, no family, no nothing. And again, he has physical disabilities and he's going through a lot. It's like he took his fucking money too. So then eventually he comes in contact with a man named Dr. Frederick Treves, who was a prominent surgeon at London's Royal Hospital. And he was like really deeply moved at his story because again, people thought he was like, had mental disabilities too. And because he did have issues speaking because the growths on his face were like impeding the way he spoke. But he was able to communicate. He was able to talk. He was able to write. And so he would communicate with people and he loved talking to people. If anybody would actually fucking listen to him because people didn't even want to be around him. So Dr. Treves was so moved by his story that he arranged for him to be admitted to the hospital in 1886. And he stayed in the hospital for the rest of his life. And that's like basically the best he had it because he never experienced any nice treatment for anybody who actually cared about him and didn't treat him like, some kind of freak or somebody who it's like, oh, we can't even look at him. And there's a picture I will show you. You've probably seen it before.
I don't think I have.
Not of him, but like he'd walk around wearing this hat with a mask covering it because people didn't want to see his face and he didn't want to be like, stared at. It's really fucking sad. Like his story and Sarah's story make me want to freaking cry. It was bad. And like, he was able to have friendships with obviously Dr. Treves and people in the hospital staff. And, sometimes he was able to get, visitors come in who are generally being nice. That's not there just to gawk at him, but actually talk to him. But unfortunately, his condition worsened and he wasn't in good health because of all the things he'd went through. And unfortunately, in 1890, when he was just 27 years old, he died.
Literally, that's around the same age that Sarah was when she died.
Literally.
Justice for both of these soldiers.
It was terrible. And again, just like Sarah Bartman, they obviously dissected him. They were trying to figure out what was wrong with him. They kept parts of his body to preserve it for studying to see what was, wrong with him. And yeah, it's like, I can't imagine having to go through that now in 2024 with modern science, modern medicine, and modern everything. Having to go through that shit in the fucking 1800s?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That was one of the interesting things I was finding is there was this one woman who she was in a circus in the 1940s, and I think they called her like Lisa the Lobster Girl. She had some
Oh, with her
dysfunction
hands.
with her clawed hands. But she was saying how she has such mixed feelings about it because on one hand, she got that job because it was the only job she could have. And two, there was kind of a community. Because remember how I was telling you how when the Munchkins were filming The Wizard of
The
Oz,
little people.
well, I was
Yes.
referring to them as their casted role as the
Yes.
Munchkins in The Wizard of Oz. Yes, the little people. But it was the first time that you had 130 little people all in the same building, and all of them had usually been the only person in their town. It felt completely isolated, and they all ended up becoming friends, having lifelong friendships and marriages. And they were saying that some of the experiences you would have in the circus is you've been ostracized, but now at least you have people who are kind of like you. Obviously, you have very different
Everybody's got something.
alleged deformities, but there was a lot of marriage there as well.
I mean, I'm glad they're able to find some kind of community. It's really fucked up. And it's so sad. Dr. Frederick Treves had this quote about him. He said, he often said to me that he wished he could lie down to sleep like other people, and he must, with some determination, have made the experiment. Thus it came about that his death was due to the desire that had dominated his life, the pathetic but hopeless desire to be like other people. So R.I.P. Sarah Bartman. Rest in power, Sarah Bartman. And rest in peace to Joseph Merrick. They didn't deserve that shit.
No, they didn't. How we're going to transition to Britney Spears is beyond me.
So, they were treated like spectacles. They were paraded around like animals. And who else was going through that? But a woman named Britney Jean Spears.
It's Britney, bitch.
Let's get into Britney. So I'm a huge Britney Spears fan. Always been a huge Britney Spears fan. And Circus was a very interesting era because obviously now people think about Blackout was such like critical acclaim. Like that album was iconic. Now people say it's iconic, but back then people were like, "It's a hot mess. She looks a hot mess. Like what is she even making me about?"
I do remember that.
Right.
So where does Circus fall? Because I have no internet.
So in terms of how I like them, or just in general the albums.
Where was this amongst the albums? Is this pre-Blackout?
This is post-Blackout. This came right after, like a year after Blackout. So,
she looked so different. So she went. She had black hair for Blackout
because she shaved her head.
Now she dyes her hair back to blonde,
and she's getting the weave, the extensions.
Bob.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in 2007, Blackout comes out, and then at the end of 2008 is when we get Circus. But before we get that, at the beginning of the year, in January 2008, this is the worst time of her life, just about. So in January 2008, she's going through all these issues. People are claiming she's on substances. She's obviously in this nasty issues with Kevin Federline.
So they're divorcing.
They're divorcing. There's obviously custody issues. They have 2 sons who both has turned 18. Kevin Federline get a job now. So they're going through all this back and forth, and she refused to give up her son. She literally no, I'm not going to give them up. So obviously the police were called, and she was put on a 5150 hold. And if you don't know, in the state of California, there's this thing called a 5150 where if you are experiencing, issues that make you a danger to yourself or other people, you get put on this 3-day psychiatric hold. So they put her on the psychiatric hold, and eventually, like a couple days and weeks later, they took her to court immediately, and her father, the evil Jamie Spears, who lost a leg, and it's karma for all the shit he did to Britney, he put her under the conservatorship.
Oh.
That is when he put her under the conservatorship. And, they said all these things like, oh, like she's too mentally ill. She's too mentally unstable to do all these things. We have to take care of her finances. She can't have her money. She can't have a phone.
So this is her first album under the conservatorship, and it's called Circus?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
It's called Circus. And so they do that to her. And that's when she's on there. And it's so crazy because they claimed that she was so ill and had so many mental issues that she couldn't even have a cell phone. She couldn't have internet access. She couldn't even decide what she wanted to eat on her own. But during this time, she had a cameo on How I Met Your Mother. She had a cameo on Glee. She came out with an album. She performed at the VMAs, and she went on tour. So it's like, this bitch can't go get a grilled cheese down the street, but she can do all this shit and make you guys money and have no access to it? That's suspicious. So in December 2008, she comes out with her 5th album, Circus, and it's her 5th #1 album. And of course, she makes history breaking records, like the only person to have, like, at that time, 5 back-to-back #1 albums. Each single one, banger, banger, banger. And it was also the
So what are the tracks on there? I know Circus, and that's it.
Okay. So, Circus, again, the fastest-selling album of the year 2008. The lead single for Circus was Womanizer.
That's on there? Why did I think that was on Blackout?
Womanizer, you're a womanizer, oh, womanizer.
Wow.
You are, yeah. Superstar, yeah. That's on.
No way, that's on
Where
there?
you from? How's it going?
I love that music video.
I love that song. I love the video. It's giving me toxic vibes. And guess what? This is fun fact. News you can use. How many #1 singles do you think Britney Spears has?
Oh, God, I
Just guess, like
30?
And I'm sure you can, the songs you think are #1 are like Baby One More Time, Oops, I Did It Again, Toxic. Wrong answer. Her first #1 was Baby One More Time, and she didn't get her second #1 until Womanizer.
That's a mic drop moment.
That literally mic drop. That is so insane.
That's crazy. What about I'm a Slave for You?
That was 27. Again, the early 2000s, there was a lot of fucking competition. So for her to be that iconic.
What about Toxic?
That was #3.
The way you can just get
Literally
these like this.
I'm Britney down.
Damn. Okay, I'm shocked.
Yeah, so that was her second #1, which to me, again, I still can't believe it. And the second single, of course, was All Eyes on Me in the Center of the Ring, just like a, yeah. And again, she got a lot of flack in that video because obviously she's using animals.
Yeah, she did have elephants. We watched the video last night.
Right, and Britney also, had used animals before, and like her iconic performance during the VMAs with I'm a Slave for You with the snake. So PETA was always on her ass. They were on her tail, and it's just like, leave Britney alone. I'm so sorry. I hope the elephants are fine. But anywho, after that, her third single, also marred by controversy, Love Me, Hate Me, Say What You Want.
If You Seek Amy.
All the boys and all the girls are back into If You
The
Seek.
way that was such a hit on the playground.
And
Everybody, If You Seek Amy.
do you know what that means?
I remember being told, because I was just like, why the fuck do you keep saying it? It was during Dodgeball, and they were like, spell it out.
And I was like, I know what it means.
I'm sure you were the one that was
1,000%.
letting everybody know.
I bought that CD at Walmart. I loved
So that was a
Britney
good
Spears.
album. She had.
I loved it. And
hits.
also it had a radar.
I don't know what that
Confidence
is.
a must. Oh, you don't like, because I got you on my radar.
I don't know it. I don't know that I
What?
don't like it, but
Oh.
I don't think I've heard it.
Okay.
I wasn't into pop the way that you were into pop.
Okay, there's so many good songs on the album. Oh my God, like Lace and Leather.
Don't get derailed.
Kill the Lights. Okay, I won't go on. But I love that album. And again, it was great for her. But again, she was getting a drag for If You Seek Amy. There's all these freaking news reporters who are like, oh my God, how could she make music like this? Children are talking about If You Seek Amy.
And we
All
were.
this over-sexualized music. So she's going through a lot.
Yeah.
PETA's dragging her. The parents are dragging her for If You Seek Amy. And then, of course, when she goes on her circus tour, she's getting dragged when she goes to Australia because people are claiming, oh, she's lip syncing. She's not even doing anything. She's dancing like we want our money back. Like, what is she even doing up there? And that was also the tour where the Pussycat Dolls were on. And the Pussycat Dolls would shortly disband after that tour because around that time
They were
is when,
her openers?
It's when Slumdog Millionaire came out. And on Slumdog Millionaire,
Jai-Ho.
Jai-Ho, it was Jai-Ho featuring Nicole Scherzinger and not the Pussycat Dolls.
Oh,
and
I
that was a
didn't
straw that broke the
realize
camel's back.
that.
Pop History by Fatou Project. But yeah.
Okay.
Britney was just going through so much at the time. And again, after Circus, literally after Circus, she came out with multiple albums after that. And I'm just like, again, y'all are saying this woman is incapacitated, cannot do anything for herself, but you are still working at, because after that, she came out with, again, my personal favorite Britney Spears album, Femme Fatale. And after Femme Fatale was Britney Jean. And after Britney Jean, we got Glory, which is highly controversial among Britney Spears fans for reasons I won't get into now. But
What is the one where Breathe on Me is on?
that's on In
That's
the
my
Zone.
number one.
You don't need to touch, just breathe. Yeah,
Yeah.
iconic. So yeah, Britney said, yeah, she felt like she was in a circus and she was a circus freak during that time because the paparazzi was following her everywhere. That's at the height of the time with like the worst TMZ, Perez Hilton, constant nonstop stalking. Like if you watch like those YouTube videos of just that time back then, it's like there would be hundreds of paparazzi stalking her. She'd be crashing her fucking car. No wonder she got that damn umbrella. She should have whooped their ass. But my
Well,
poor
this came
Britney.
full circle.
Yeah, circuses are not good. We've learned.
Yeah. So Cirque du Soleil, however, exception to the rule. And I did hear, because I had like a bird who was a former gymnast and was close with people who perform in the Cirque du Soleil, they do all be fucking each other. It's very,
Who's
very
shocked by
intimate.
that?
I guess, yeah. I would just love to see a reality TV show about it, like the behind the scenes.
Right. Because when I think of circus, oh my God, American Horror Story Circus.
And I wonder how much of that kind of fuels the freak aspect of
Oh,
it.
it wasn't circus. It was called Freak Show, which makes it even worse. I just remember the only thing I remember from that season is when Jessica Lange sings "God and Monsters" by Lana Del Rey at the circus.
I never watched it. I loved the first season, skipped two because obviously I don't like the demonic themes.
That was the best season.
Skipped.
Asylum
What
was
was
the best
three?
season. Oh,
Was
second was
Second was Asylum.
Second was Asylum. It was Asylum, then
We don't need to do this.
Okay.
So thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thank you so much for listening. And we're not going to do a fuck, marry, kill.
Yeah.
How about we kill the circuses, which they did? And fuck, not fuck sexually, but fuck all those people. Look at my finger. Fuck all those people who did all those terrible things to Joseph Merrick and Sarah Bartman and all those other people that were involved in the circus.
I wish I had the little like shots that you could push the button where to like boom.
But yeah, boom.
Yeah.
Pow, pow, pow.
Light them up.
But yeah, and who are you going to invite to the dinner party?
All of our victims. That's who I'm gonna.
Certainly not Barnum and Bailey.
Yeah, no.
You can't get inside the club.
We're all just gonna have a. It's gonna be therapeutic. We'll bring your therapist. She can be the host of the dinner
Are
party.
you going to invite Joe Exotic?
No, I'll have him be the valet. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening. And of course, if you made it this far at the end, thank you so much. But also, please make sure to, again, give us 5 stars wherever you listen. And if you listen on Apple, please do write us a review. We really appreciate it. We read them all out
Especially
loud.
the one that said that they really liked my voice.
Yeah, and I will try to, make my voice.
She's jealous. It's
They're
okay.
probably like, we want to hear this bitch sing again. I sing so much on this episode. I'm a Britney
Bye.
Spears fan. Sue me. Okay, bye guys. We love you. Hope you enjoyed this live episode with us IRL.
You love to drag out a
Dap
goodbye.
me up. Bye.
See you next
Till
whatever.
next time.
Yeah.